Welcome to Talks with Sheba, the place where real people give real answers on issues plaguing our community today. Hi, I'm your host, Dr. Sheba Holly. Thanks for joining us on this marvelous Monday. We aim to invite, excite, educate, and empower. So let's talk. Let's talk about navigating the generational divide. What is that? You don't know? Well, what about when you're texting your child or your loved one to come to dinner from upstairs? That's what it's about.
This episode is brought to you by AJ+. Take them or leave them, but by 2020, the millennials will make up a third of all adults in the United States. You may be familiar with their other labels like Gen Y, Gen Me, the Boomerang generation, countless others. But basically, they are the people born between the early 80s and the 2000s. Right now, that makes them between the ages of 15 and 34. Full disclosure, I'm obviously a millennial. This year, they are set to outnumber the baby boomer generation, which is in decline. Let's break down the American generations for a minute. The millennials are the latest definitive generation to emerge, according to reports. Before them, it was Generation X, or people born between the 60s and the 80s. This generation came of age during the Reagan era. It's smaller in population size and a little more conservative. Before that came the baby boomers, born between the 40s and the 60s, named for the population spike after World War II. They are known for their rejection of authority as youths, and their increasingly conservative outlook as they age. Before them, it was the silent generation, whose members grew up during the hard times like the Depression and McCarthyism. Then, taking us back to the early 1900s, the greatest generation is known for fighting the Nazis and boosting the US economy. But coming back to the present for a minute. This year is the beginning of the age of the millennials. The Brookings Institution estimates that by 2025, they will make up 75% of the workforce. Their influence is already changing the landscape of the political and business world. What are millennials known for, though? Their defining characteristics, according to the White House, are exposure to the internet during formative years, more education and racial diversity than ever before, and unfortunately coming of age during a recession. They're also labeled narcissistic and lazy by other sources, although this is disputed. The Pew Research Center notes that millennials are overwhelmingly liberal. They generally support gay marriage, abortion rights, and are not religious. They hail from incredibly diverse backgrounds and are burdened with large student debt. Higher levels of unemployment have also plagued them worse than previous generations. A 2012 Pew study found that 7 out of 10 Americans across all age groups feel that today's youth had a harder time finding jobs, saving for the future, paying for college, and paying for a home than earlier generations. Although some challenges lie ahead for millennials, there is still time for them to figure everything out. The largest age group for the generation is just 23 years old. With about 80 million strong, millennials are poised to have a huge effect on the direction of the United States and the world in years to come. Millennials are more familiar with student loan debt than any generation before them. But what happens if they can't pay it back? Watch this video to find out. The Treasury Offset Program allows the U.S. Department of the Treasury to take your tax refund and give it directly to the Department of Education to pay down your debt. They're also legally allowed to garnish up to 15% of your wages, which means taking money directly out of your paycheck. If you want to make sure you don't miss our latest videos, also remember, you can subscribe. Thank you for watching TestTube.
Yeah, millennials, the navigating the generational divide, and that's what you start thinking of. Well, tonight we have Coach George Rice III, author and motivational speaker. Hey, hon.
Hey. How are you? Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year.
You look great as always.
Thank you. Thank you. So how do we navigate this thing? What's going on with these folks? I have to say, before we even get started, I used to text my children to come down.
I've done it before. We're all guilty of it. I think it's one of those things that when in Rome, do as the Romans do, unfortunately. But at some point, when this particular generation has children, what will they do?
What will they do?
And how much will they embrace it? You know, I guess having worked with this generation for some time, and now I have 2 millennials myself. It's funny to watch the balance between person-to-person communication and texting and social media and the whole nine. And so we've all fallen victim to, if you're downstairs in your man cave or your woman cave, I don't know if you have a woman
I
cave
have a
or
cave.
not. Okay. So, you get to a place where you just don't feel like saying, hey, come on down. Or, for whatever reason, their music is up or they've got their earbuds in their ears. And so they can't hear anything. So you figure one way that that they'll at least get the messages if you text it. And so while it's convenient, is what my dad said a long time ago. It's really information overload. And it becomes a little too convenient. And if there's no balance, if there's not enough of a balance, we get to a place where we begin to lose touch with how to deal with everything, feelings, emotions, conflict, even getting to a place where it's not just necessarily, I don't think it's necessarily impeding their ability to communicate, but even to receive compliments or even criticism. So every day I learn something new about myself and how I try to navigate it, working at George Washington University with so many wonderful students.
You said wonderful students.
I mean, they are.
All students are wonderful. But it's like sometimes you have to sit back and look and say, what are you thinking?
Right.
No, really, what are you thinking?
Right, yeah, right. And is what you're thinking, how quickly do you communicate it? And so there are times when, because there's probably a different thought pattern or brain waves when you're texting versus talking.
Right.
And so a lot of times I tell my students, I even tell my own children, I'll stop myself and I'll say, wait a minute, did I say that right? Because we all think faster than we actually talk.
Absolutely.
And so, but it's amazing. I would love to see how many words, millennials type per minute from their phone versus their keyboard.
With their thumbs.
Yeah, it's insane.
It's insane. And then when you think of the visual stimulation being a drug.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I feel like this is probably their most immediate drug of choice.
Their phone. Yeah,
why not? You can escape so many things. Reality. It won't do your homework for you yet. Yet. And I'm sure a lot of students are hoping that somebody comes up with an app.
I think I need to make that app. I think I need to do that.
Listen, you will retire early and very wealthy if you do that.
Definitely. So, I mean, these gadgets, they pacify our millennials.
They do. I've even gotten to a place where, in a household, the parents have to set the example. So there are times I have to remind myself, okay, put your phone away, and sometimes just be quiet. And a lot of times, most people want to get away from the noise and they think, well, it's just radio and TV. It's like, no, there's noise from the phone and not just the buzzing of it. But literally it does become a drug because every time it buzzes, some people just feel like,
and I find that hard when you go to the hair salon when my makeup's being done. It's like the phone goes off for these guys, and they're like, hold.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, come back.
Right. What's funny? There was an absolute ingenious invention. My niece in New York in the Bronx, she just opened up a beauty and barber salon.
Okay.
And so she was showing some pictures on her Instagram, and it was of a guy getting his hair cut. And so you have the cape over.
Yes.
You. There's a clear space there.
Right.
Where if you want to text, you don't have to worry about putting your hands over the actual drape.
Are you serious?
So whoever created that is
making money.
Yeah, I don't know how long it was. I just saw it a couple of weeks ago.
Okay, so it's like the drape.
The drape is there.
Okay,
and it's
clear
clear
right here,
exactly.
so they can put their hands over and still see and keep their head
exactly
straight.
Or do whatever the barber or the beautician is telling them to do. So it's funny how I think this becomes probably the first generation of young people to kind of shift the odds are in their favor in terms of technology. Yeah, it's the first thing that they see.
Right.
And I'm saying from the time some of these young people are even 2 years old. I think I saw something on Good Morning America. They were talking about how proficient some like one toddler,
really?
Toddlers are with iPads, iPhones, knowing what they are, knowing how to work certain buttons.
Oh, that's insane.
Which could be used properly if done in the right vein. But a lot of times this is just so, mom or dad has to do something, just give them the iPad. That'll keep them busy.
That's like back in the day with the television.
Yeah. The television. Yeah. And I guess in our parents' generation, it was the radio.
Right.
I guess.
Sit in front of the radio.
Sit in front of radio, because before there was television, there was radio. And so, or honestly, when let's just take it back to basics. When we were children, which wasn't that long ago, but when we were children,
I'm 21. I tell you every time.
When we were children, and even when our parents were children, they actually still went outside and played with each other.
Right.
And so, how do you get to a place where you still find that, again, there's a balance to, okay, fine, you want to be hip, you want to be, with the times, but at the same time, you still want your children to be kids at some point.
Right.
And so now I know some 7 and 8 year olds with smartphones.
What?
True story.
You said true story.
I won't divulge the names at all.
But I remember having a cell phone. I remember going to the phone booth. Have you seen a payphone lately?
Actually, I just saw one removed about 3 months ago.
You said removed.
Removed. I don't even know if it worked. But you know what? There used to be, actually in metro stations, at Metro Center, there were several payphones. They took them all out.
You're kidding.
Yeah, it's probably costing a lot of money just to have it there or keep it connected.
Yeah, and I would have change, because remember, it wasn't just you put in your dime.
Right.
If you went over a certain amount of minutes, you had to put in more. Ooh, am I telling my age?
No.
Oh, okay, good.
You're good.
So you put more change in just so you can talk longer.
I read something, I believe it was John Hope Bryant's book. I think it was The Lower Class, Can the Lower Class Save America, America's Wealth? He quoted a stat that was ridiculous. There are 7 billion people on Earth. 6 billion people have cell phones.
What? That's my word for tonight. What?
Clearly. I mean, so ultimately we are clearly, we've already gravitated and we've transformed into a generation that is completely dependent upon not necessarily social media, but communication and contact through other means. Right. And so again, I've always found it interesting. I've always been fascinated with the way people learn. And so, we talk about this generational divide, the things, and I have to tell my own children, I said, here's the one thing that's interesting about your generation. When you and I went to school, which wasn't that long ago,
right.
When you and I went to school, if we forgot a homework assignment, or say you had the homework assignment, but you left your book at the house. Right. I mean, you left your book at school. Either you would hope that maybe your friend that lived in your neighborhood had the book. Right. So maybe, and hopefully they did their homework. Right. Or at least they were front like they were doing their homework.
Pick your friends.
So you go over there and borrow the book from them. If not, you would maybe, if you live close enough to school, if you were fortunate enough to live close to school, you go back. Mm-hmm. Hopefully the custodian or somebody will let you in order for you to.
We're doing a lot of hoping here.
Well, but now, if you leave your book at school, because the books rarely come home now, everything's on Google. And so my son posted something
Google
on
Books,
Instagram not long ago. He says, respect your parents. They got through life without Google. Well, they got through college without Google.
Wow.
But that's real. I mean,
I used to go to the library and sleep on the floor. George Mason University, Fenwick Library. I would be sleeping on the floor with books all around me.
Wow. So it was by osmosis, all the knowledge was going to get in. That's how it's going to happen.
I mean, that's how long I would be in that library.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think too, and I tell people, I still like the feel of books personally.
I do too.
But when you talk about reading, I would love somebody to produce some stats or some research on the rate at which people read from, especially maybe this generation, from a book versus a cell phone versus a computer screen versus an iPad, right? Or whatever people have or use. I would be interested personally. I still read faster from books, but that's how I was raised. They didn't have iPods or iPads in 1876 when I was in high school. So it just didn't happen. So.
But you remember, we wanted our kids to be smart. We wanted to be smart, but back when my children were little, there was the baby Mozart. There was
my daughter,
your baby can read, and all these things to catapult them. Yeah,
and you know what? Those were ingenious inventions. The lady who invented that was a mom who just happened to, she just kind of play around with the idea. And actually, both of my children were raised on Baby Mozart and Baby Bach. It was actually one thing that would kind of catch their attention. But what's funny is that I think beyond that, media has always had some sort of subliminal messages in it. If you catch any kid watching Sesame Street, and Sesame Street is it still on?
Honestly,
I think it is.
I don't know.
Well, between that Sesame
but it may
Street,
be
Barney,
hip hop Sesame.
well, whatever it is, you get on there and there's something in it that draws young people to it, especially toddlers. It's something that really draws them in, and so I'm sure there's some psychology behind it somehow where people think of these ideas and it literally catches on and it becomes almost the only way that people communicate. And so my whole thing now is to be in a place where, because people are like, what are New Year's resolutions? I was like, I don't make those. I said, I stopped making those. I guess my thing is now, what can we cut back?
Right.
If you really think about it, I don't care. Even the poorest of people today that have some place to live probably still have too much when you think about it.
Yeah. And they always have a cell phone.
Always. Yeah, always, a cell phone.
They may not have any food, but they'll have a cell phone.
Listen, I see homeless people with cell phones that actually work.
You're kidding.
That's how it goes down. And not just in D.C., L.A., New York, Ohio, Atlanta.
It's like the millennials, and I know we're stuck on that, but it's like a mind shift.
Right.
Like, for example, the holidays are now here.
Mm-hmm.
How do they think? How do they approach the tradition of Christmas?
Yeah.
Let's see. We have a video on that.
Hey, Tom, I just got my Christmas tree.
You're so organized. Was it busy at the Christmas tree lot?
Christmas tree lot? They still have those? No, I just bought it online.
Wow, I didn't know you could buy fresh Christmas trees online.
Fresh Christmas trees? This one's fake, obviously.
Sally, buying a fake Christmas tree online really brings out the seasonal spirit.
What's more spirited than free 2-day shipping on Amazon Prime?
Oh, yeah. The Grinch would be so proud. Do millennials do all their shopping online?
Of course. In fact, half of millennials intend to spend more than 40% of their holiday budget online. Ooh, I want to buy this. OMG, I need this. Free shipping, check.
So that's why Amazon's got all those robots.
Yeah, 15,000 of them in their warehouses.
Just shuffling inventory.
And the robots apparently can do the same work in 15 minutes that would take a typical worker an hour.
Efficiency is a false god, Sally. But at least you young people are spending a lot of money.
That's not entirely true, Tom. 13% of boomers say they'll go into debt over holiday shopping versus just 7% of millennials.
It's okay. We'll get it back on Social Security. But I can't help thinking you're going to miss out on a lot this season. 2-hour lines to see Santa Claus. Fighting for the last hot toy on the shelf.
I got the last one, sucker.
Slush-filled parking lots.
Slush-filled? More like traffic congested?
Sure, but that's part of the deal. Christmas is supposed to be stressful and inconvenient.
You can do that if you want to, but I'm going to avoid the checkout lines and traffic. Oh, and those Black Friday sales? Really? Just price compare online from the comfort of your parents' basement.
The fake tree. The fake tree.
That's all we ever had growing up.
Are you serious?
Yes. That's all we ever had growing up.
I love the smell of a pine tree in the house.
And it wasn't even necessarily that
Or fur.
that we couldn't do it. I think my parents were just too cheap to get it. But 9 times out of 10, my father and my mother probably wasn't going to clean it up. So my father was like, look, we'll get a fake tree. But I mean, one thing about it, Christmas was always a beautiful thing. Even with the fake tree, I didn't care. As long as it had presents, I don't care. We could have the Charlie Brown Christmas tree. It didn't matter. As long as we got presents under the tree. But I guess when we talk about this whole generation, I don't want people to think that I'm demonizing this generation.
Never.
Because when you think about it, people from our generation and our parents' generation created these things.
Right.
With one thing in mind, okay, we're going to make things easier, right? But at the same time, we're going to make things more convenient. But more than anything, we want to get rich. We want to get rich. We're trying to get paid. And so I think way too often, I think it's incumbent upon us to begin to model the way. But again, it's got us hooked too. Just when we went to break, I had to text real quick to see what was happening. So I'm guilty of it. So, I mean, we're all kind of hooked in because we feel like we're going to miss something. It's kind of a thing where I don't want our society has basically gravitated to things that happen in real time or don't happen in real time.
Right.
Like I told my own kids, I was like, you all have shows that you watch, but if you miss them, you're good because you can just go. You can go on demand and watch it. You can DVR it ahead of time.
Yes.
And I tell them, I said, y'all don't understand the struggle. Like growing up, if you missed a show, like say you missed a Cosby Show,
you're short.
Unless you have somebody unless you knew somebody who had a VCR that actually recorded it, or you would literally have to wait until the reruns came back around in order to see that actual episode. And I was like, now I said, y'all can watch a whole whole season in a weekend or a couple of hours. You can binge watch stuff. And the Cosby Show was a half an hour. So that's nothing. So I tell them, everything's so instant. But again, I think that, it's incumbent upon our generation and our parents' generation, more so ours, because we're parents now. We're the ones left with the task of not only educating, mentoring, and raising these young people. We have to be in a place where, we kind of show them the balance, because there is a balance. Yes, it's almost, my father would say, well, it's not a necessity. Well, in this age, it kind of is a necessity.
It is.
In terms of, maybe you don't have to have the most features on your phone, but it is a necessity. Just with so much crazy stuff happening now between school shootings, now church shootings, now, people need to be in a place where they can get in contact with people. And so.
Absolutely. And, and the crazy thing is, though, I find myself, I would laugh at others, but I find myself now, when I wake up, the alarm goes off. First of all, the alarm goes off. And I'll check to see if I have any texts, and then I'll go to Facebook.
Really? You popular though.
I'm popular.
You're popular. I don't know. I don't know how to live that life. You're popular. I'm not popular, so I don't have to do that.
I gotta check. I'm like, I wonder, did someone send me a message? I sleep with my phone next to me. It's something. Yeah, we've been hooked. We've been hoodwinked. Bamboozled. Led astray. Run
amok.
But what I did, back to the video, what I liked was, did you hear when she said Black Friday?
Right.
Forget about it. She's not standing in line.
Right.
She's going to look online. Not in line. Be in line, but be online. And get better deals.
Well, I guess too, and here is kind of the curse of things being so immediate. It's beginning to take away jobs for some people.
Ooh,
when you think about it. There are fewer bank tellers most places now. They're even cutting back on some library staff. They're cutting hours on they're shutting libraries down in some cities because
they're remote access.
Well, yeah, and now with, again, like my son said, respect your parents. They graduated from college without Google. I mean, when we had to do a research paper, we had to go to the library.
That's why I said I slept on the floor of Fenwick Library.
Right, and you had to copy the papers. I was a psychology major, so we had
Me too.
We had an experimental psych class, and I'm grateful to Dr. Clark because I learned how to research. I would hate to think. Well, I'm not saying that the students won't learn how to research now. It's just boom. They can, if they've got a laptop, boom, they click, it's there. But one thing we had to do was we had to actually hand in copies of the articles that we actually did. Not only do we have to cite our references and do the works cited page or what have you, we had to actually hand the articles in. So it's like you can't even fake the funk on this.
Right.
So but here's one thing that is convenient now. And it does, even though you do have the thing, research at your fingertips. One thing they do now is there is a site now just in case somebody ever tries to plagiarize your work. I don't know what
Okay.
the name of it is now, but if we have some people out there that are doing their doctorate or their master's or doing their master's thesis, there are certain things you can't fake the funk anymore.
Right.
Because if you cite somebody's stuff and you claim it as your own,
Ooh.
they're gonna get you.
Yeah,
Matter of
I'll
fact,
get you.
when I was in Ohio, there was actually a friend of mine who was doing her she had done her doctorate. She had finished, and there were 2 or 3 students that had plagiarized her work.
Oh.
They called her back in for the hearing.
You're kidding.
It was serious. But I don't know how they found out, because this was I don't know. Well, it's probably about 2008, 2009.
Oh, okay.
So they got him. So I mean, I think there are so many good things that can happen for this generation. Like
Right.
I tell my own children and even my students, I tell them, I said, if the tutor doesn't get it right, your professor doesn't get it right, there's 1,000,001 options on YouTube. So if it's a foreign language, if it's chemistry, if it's stat, if it's calculus, if it's what have you, if you're trying to get the process, if you're really trying to get to the meat of the process, you have it at your fingertips. However, how willing are you to go through every or 3 or 4 or 5 different options in terms of on YouTube you may get the teacher that just explains it better than your professor. And that does happen.
Yes.
Matter of fact, there are a lot of students that tell me that their TAs teach better than the professors.
Oh, that's
And so I think
funny.
a lot of, it is. And so, or you may get a tutor who kind of explains it, but when that hour or so is up, they go.
Right.
But still, you have YouTube where you can actually access that and get access to academic assistance. So
like Khan Academy. I know a lot of
it's
the
phenomenal.
K through 12s like
Yeah.
Khan Academy because that's the video, and I'm
Absolutely.
plugging in, but whatever.
Oh.
But it's like has
Send
the
a check.
video and breaks it down. It
Yeah.
could help a teacher that has to refresh on a concept or a skill.
Absolutely. And again, I think, there's that balance, getting back to how to really manage when you're on social media or manage when you're on your smartphone, to getting to a place where you can really increase your knowledge, whether it's through social media, whether it's through old school going to the library.
Right.
And I still do see people, and I've gotten away from this, really when my children were younger, we would take them to the library, but we stopped doing that. But we probably need to get back to it. Speaking of smartphones, if my children are listening, this is the New Year's resolution I made. I
Okay.
swore I wasn't gonna wake them up anymore in the morning.
Oh.
See, I'm still old school. I still wake them up in the morning, and they both got smartphones.
Well, I used to do that too, but I have this thing about waking people up. I don't like to touch them.
I don't like waking people up either.
It's like I'll call your name until you gradually come out of it.
Yeah.
Like I would say, George, 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 George. And because
Yeah.
I tell my kids, do not touch people while they're sleeping.
Yeah.
You could send them into cardiac arrest.
Well, that's true.
Yeah,
Well,
it's true.
It is true. It is true. It's funny. Like I'll kind of turn the light on in my daughter's room. I'll say, sis, time to get up. And then I'll turn the light on in the hallway. I won't turn the bright light on in her
Right.
room, but I'll turn the bright light on in the hallway. So sooner or later, some light's gonna shine in there, and whether she catches the bus or not,
You said,
it's up to her. Now my son's a little bit different. Like my hands are normally cold, so I'll put my hand on the back of his neck.
oh my God.
But I won't smack the back of his neck. I just put my hands on the back of his neck because they both sleep really hard.
Oh, wow.
So, but I told I broke a resolution already. I said in 2016 that they were going to wake up by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So
What did you do this morning?
I woke them up. Well, because they could
It's
easily.
okay.
Well, they could very easily ignore their phones.
Right.
This is out of all the time to ignore the phone, you're gonna ignore it when it's time to get up. Of course.
Yeah,
That's only right. That's
I hit
par for the
snooze
course,
3
right?
times. I am guilty of hitting snooze 3 times with 10-minute increments.
Ooh.
So
You got it
I,
mapped out. Okay. All right. That's what's up.
Yeah. So what I do is I set the alarm for 5:15,
Okay.
and then it'll go off, and I'm like, it's 5:15,
Okay.
and I'll hit it,
Mm-hmm.
and it goes off again. I'm like, it's 5:25.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing math while I'm sleeping.
Okay. Well, look. Hey, your brain is working. That's all right. Ain't
I'm
nothing
doing
wrong
math,
with
but
it.
I'm getting up
Yeah.
in my own time. But I kind of psych myself out
Yeah.
because I set it early when I know I really don't have to get up till 5:45. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Or what you can do now, what we couldn't do when we were in high school is, you could set it to whatever music you wanted to. So it could be your favorite song. It could be something calming. It could be, you know, Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud to Kendrick Lamar. My son is a big Kendrick Lamar fan. I'm like, dude, put the Kendrick Lamar on if that's going to get you out of the bed. I don't care what it is. And it's funny because it's a house divided. My daughter's a J. Cole fan.
Okay.
She's not a Kendrick fan, but she's more of a J. Cole fan than Kendrick. And then my son is more of a Kendrick fan. And so, here's what's funny. Here's a quick story. I took the whole family went to go see Straight Outta Compton. So,
okay.
It's
I
funny.
saw that too.
Great movie, by the way. But it's funny because my son started rapping, cruising down the street. And I said, well, like, dude, where you get that from? So, of course, again, technology strikes where, he can get he, matter of fact, I think he knew the title song, at the end of the movie by Dr. Dre. And he's bobbing his head. I said, man, how you know this song? So he's like, I guess he had already kind of listened to it on social media or iTunes or whatever. So, I mean, it's one of those things. I'm like, okay, make sure you get the answers to the next test down.
There you go.
Before it's time for the test. Don't cheat. I'm just saying,
Just
make sure you know the questions. Make sure you know the questions before they come out.
Exactly. Still to come, Mindfulness Reloaded after these messages.
Are you or someone you know suffering from stress, anxiety, or depression? Have you experienced feelings of frustration due to lack of family and/or career support? Let's talk. Relationship issues got you down? Get the help you need. Contact Dr. Sheba Holly, mental health advisor and life coach, at clarity.fm/Dr. Sheba Holly. That's DRSHEBAHOLLY. If confidentiality, comfort, and convenience is important to you, guidance is provided on your terms. You deserve peace of mind. Contact Dr. Sheba Holly, mental health advisor and life coach, at clarity.fm/Dr. Sheba Holly. That's DRSHEBAHOLLY. Get answers now. Make your appointment today. Let's talk. Clarity.fm/Dr. Sheba Holly. That's DRSHEBAHOLLY.
You're now tuned in to Talks with Sheba. I'm your host, Dr. Sheba Holly, and we have Coach George Rice III here, and we're about to hit off some mindfulness and reload that. Mindfulness, what is it to be mindful?
It's funny, as I they say as you get older, your parents become smarter. This is what I've always heard. My father always said that. My mother and father always said that. But it's true. Because one thing, we all have to get on our children about cleaning their rooms.
Yes.
But, sometimes, nobody likes anything messy. I mean, if you do, that's your business. But while you live under your parents' house, you got to live by the rules. Nevertheless, I digress. When you talk about cleaning up your room, what we really didn't get was that they were trying to teach us mindfulness. Attention to detail. It's kind of like, the way you do anything is the way you do everything. And so, attention to detail. And so when you talk about this particular generation, I shouldn't say this generation, this day and time with all of us, I think sometimes we are a little less mindful than we should be. And I'm saying from the things that we do, we're not talking about saying excuse me, but I mean, you've seen pedestrians out here with a near-death experience almost at every light because they're too plugged in.
Yes.
The music is way too loud.
Or they're on their cell phone walking across, not looking.
Right. Or, they're texting while they're driving, and that's a whole nother story.
Trust me.
Because now what I do is when I'm in traffic, I go by and I count the people that aren't on their phone.
What?
That's the lowest number. And so, we talk about mindfulness. I think every time, we do become a slave to that buzz or that ding. And, we're mindful about our phones.
Right.
But what are we mindful of on the job or, at church or what have you? Here was one thing that disturbed me when I was in church, actually this past weekend. There were a significant amount of people that were just blatantly on their phones. And they weren't reading church? And they weren't reading the Bible. I mean, no shade, but But again,
You said no shade. You said they weren't reading the Bible.
They weren't reading the Bible. Well, if they were, God bless them. But I doubt it. I doubt it. But no, it's one of those things where mindfulness, and again, and again, some people are still working while they're at church, which, if that's what you do, hey, baby got to eat,
Right.
Baby needs shoes. Mama needs a new dress,
Yes.
whatever
I like
it is.
new dresses.
So, I mean, when you talk about mindfulness, there are, to me, I don't think it's necessarily limited to this particular generation. However, I think they inherit that particular pattern of behavior, because it's like, okay, well, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna just walk out here. It's like, wait a minute, you just got your stuff in yours, and you're actually, you become less aware of your surroundings. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you knew, well, you probably knew this here, probably DC about 3 or 4 years ago, probably anywhere, any city in the USA, especially where there's a train system, people were snatching phones.
Right, right.
Or whatever, because people just were not paying attention. They figure, okay, it's a lot of people, whatever. There was a young lady who's a student of mine. She was coming up the Foggy Bottom station, and she was coming back. And so she looked real cute. I don't know if she had come from a job interview or whatever. It was really weird because, she's walking in these heels that are way too high. Y'all know how y'all do it.
Yeah,
Heels
so
that are
we
just
wobble.
way too, exactly. And she was walking real careful. I know her feet were hurting. She didn't have her cute shoes in tow. She didn't have the cute shoes in her bag.
I have flip flops.
Yeah. And so what I did was I just played a joke on her. I just went and I just gently just took her phone out of her hand. And she said, hey, what's up? And I said, if I was a robber, I said, I wouldn't have to run from you. I said, I could just walk and go through the turnstile. I said, you never catch me. I said, it would take you a while to take your shoes off or yell, bloody murder or what have you. Yeah. But that's just an example of sometimes, it's easy to tune the world out, because we all get on the train and we act like we don't see the people in front of us or next to us or behind us, or we're in the street.
Usually don't want to.
Yeah.
Well, I don't do that, but
No.
most people really don't want to see you.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's true. I even have to tell both of my children, I'm like, okay, turn it down. I know you want to listen to me. I said, but turn it down or leave one ear out. Just, so you can kind of just be aware of your surroundings. You just never know. Somebody's, it takes less than 5 seconds for somebody to catch you slipping.
Yeah, I was walking today. I had to park far away from my office, and someone was walking behind me, and I can hear them saying something. And I had all these bags, I'm just schlepping down to my car, and I turned around really quickly, and they said, "Oh, hi, Dr. Holly." And I looked, I said, "What were you just doing?" He said, "Well," she said she was practicing her lines. She's an actress. She was practicing her lines, and she had on those Dre Beats.
Yeah.
And she probably didn't know how loud she was, but she wasn't that loud, but she was loud enough where I could hear her approaching. And I was trying to be aware of my surroundings, because I had the purse, I had this bag, I had that bag. It was just a whole mess of things, and you don't know what can happen.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we get in that mindset, well, if it's safe in my world, it's safe in my headphones, well, it may or may not be.
Right.
And so, I think that carries over to a lot of other things, how you perform in school. Again, I think sometimes people, you do well what you do most. And for some people, they can function that way. They can. I was like, okay, you think you can do 2 things in one time? Okay, rock on, do your thing. I wouldn't try to, I just want you to be more mindful of what that is and what people view it as. And so, I just think all too often, like, don't bring your dinner, don't bring your phone to the dinner table. Please.
Could you imagine?
Please.
Everyone being on their cell phone in a restaurant?
Yeah. Matter of fact,
no one talking to each other.
That happens. Well, that happens in meetings. It happens in meetings. It happens at church. It happens at the dinner table. And a friend of mine, he said one time, he's about 10 or 12 people went out. He says, okay, look, here's what we're going to do. We're all going to sit our phones here in the middle of the table. The first person to reach for their phone pays for everybody.
Guess what?
Right.
I will not be answering that
Literally,
phone.
it's like kryptonite. Nobody's like, everybody's check came. They're like, oh, okay. Like, I'm not touching my phone.
Just one. I'll just take one.
Well, more like, oh, I'll figure out the tip out here. You got a pencil? I'm going to do this, because they're not going to look at their phone in order to do it.
Exactly.
But I saw something else. There are actually some some places that don't have Wi-Fi, and they say, talk to each other. Act like it's 1995, which was 21 years ago.
1995.
Which was 21 years ago.
But see, here's the thing. I didn't have a cell phone, but I did have one of those Bell Atlantic car phones.
You used to call me on my car phone. Late night when you know what my dad was a sales rep for years, and so he was one of those people that was one of the first people to have a cell phone.
Okay.
So my boys are like, oh man, that's pretty cool. Your dad's got a cell phone. And what's funny about going back to the payphone piece, at one point you used to be able to call a cell phone from a payphone. There was no charge to you on one end. So, I could actually pick up a payphone basketball practice. I might have forgotten my shoes or my shorts or something. If my dad was near the house, I could just call my dad from the payphone, and I had to have a quarter.
Oh, you kidding?
And
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was at one point. That's how it went, because it's like, let the charges be on him. And so when cell phones first came out, I think it used to be like 30 or 35, 40 cents a minute.
Yeah, it
and
was
so
a lot.
My father would call the house and he'd be like, okay. Well, I'm headed for the ranch. That was his thing. I'm headed for the ranch. We didn't have no ranch. We had a ranch style house. We had no ranch. So I'm headed for the ranch. So he would always say, "I'm headed."
Dad got jokes.
For real, he said, "I'm headed for the ranch. Y'all need anything?" And so he might say, he might ask when, "Hey, well, Dad, guess what? Yada yada." He said, "Okay, wait, no. You can just tell me that when I get home. You costing me money, boy. I gotta get off the phone
in a minute. If you can't say it in a minute,
yeah,
that's it."
But you know what? Here's what's funny. Imagine, cell phone companies are already making a gang of money anyway. So imagine if they went back to that. Because, remember when there was no free nights and weekends? Remember that?
Right.
And most people that had cell phones, wasn't talking on them. And if they were, they just, my dad used to say, if they're at the light, he says, they just acting like they talking. He says, because, he says, it's no way, unless you are just independently wealthy or you own stock in a company where you talking that much, it's not costing you money. Anyway, I'm sorry to get off task. But anyway.
No, it's just funny because I was that person that would wait until that night after 7. Call me after 7. Right. I'll talk to you after 7, nights and weekends. I'll talk to you on the weekend.
Right.
During the day, I said I'm working anyway.
Right. But, even here's what's funny. Even most people don't realize, even if you have Verizon, somebody else has Verizon. Or if you have Sprint and somebody else has Sprint. That wasn't always free either. No.
Family and friends. There was no family and friends.
There was no package. 5 in your 5. It was none of that. But, again, I think when we talk about mindfulness and we talk about this whole generational piece, let's not even talk about it. We talk about the digital era now. It is very, very easy to get sucked into the matrix. It's kind of where, kind of art imitates life. But again, I think one thing that it has the potential to do, or the capacity to do, is actually rob us of our social skills.
Yes.
Because now what you have is young people or not so young people or whatever that look great on paper, but they suck in interviews because most of their conversations exist behind email, on cell phones, on, via text message. And so, people are breaking up via text, social media.
Email.
Email. I'm like, wow.
Really? It's like, how rude is that?
Yeah. I mean, people are like, yo, that's gangster. It's like, yeah, that's internet gangster. That's internet gangster. Because, it's like, but I really feel like, we've gotten to a place, all of us now are being affected where we don't necessarily operate in real time. Right. And I got a good friend of mine. He's like, he says, well, look, man, he's always about time. He's like, look, man, he says, if you ever want to hang out during the week, just let me know. He says, I operate in real time. So if you tell me you're going to be there in 20 minutes, he said, if I tell you I'm going to be there in 20 minutes, that means I'm going to be there in 20 minutes.
Right.
He says, but at the same time, he says, I just like the opportunity to hang out with people so I don't have to be on my phone.
Right.
And so I think it allows us to be distracted. And here's what I fear, because we're all distracted by something or someone or it doesn't always necessarily have to be social media. It could be music, honestly. Music could distract us or actually make us more productive. But I think it has really had an effect on executive functioning.
Yeah.
In terms of, I'm sure now you probably have more diagnoses of young people who are diagnosed as ADHD, or
Yes.
they're in the category now where they call it not necessarily ADHD, but or ADD. It's there's an issue with executive functioning. How do you get to a place where you can focus on a task for a significant amount of time and be effective while you're focusing?
Right.
And so again, we've all fallen victim to it. You know, there are times, you know, even at work, to get off the grid, I'll set my timer on my phone for 30 minutes. I'll answer email for 30 minutes. And then when that buzzer buzzes, I get off, because you know just as well as I do, you know, however many emails you get per day, that's that many people coming to your door.
Yes. And I had to explain that to someone today. I mean, right before the show, I said, look, if you really want to reach out to me, if you really want my attention, if you sent the email, don't keep sending emails. I get probably 100 to 200 emails per day.
Yeah, easily.
No joke, per
Easily.
day.
Yeah.
And then you're upset because I'm not responding to you.
Right.
Send me a text to let me know you sent the email so I can read it. Call me.
Right.
I like talking.
Right. Because sometimes you could solve that problem
Quicker.
in 2 minutes versus, you know, you're going back and forth via email. It could take you a day. Well, not a day. It could take you a couple of hours to solve a 5-minute problem.
Right.
So a lot of times there are students who will email me and they'll have all these questions. I'm like, this is too much to type. My response is simple. Come see me.
Right. And that's how I feel. It's too much to type. I don't want to text. I mean, once they start asking a lot of questions, you know, you go to the text icon and then you hit next to their name so it can start calling them.
Yeah. Right.
Be like,
right. But you know what? You talk about mindfulness. Now it's gotten to a place where I've always been good with numbers. So it's a thing where, like, I can remember, from the time I fell in love with sports, I could tell you who was what number on what team. It's just something I've always, I can remember my first phone number when we lived on 1935 Joffrey in Toledo, Ohio. I could tell you the first phone number I had.
wow.
I was asked my kids just 2 days ago. I said, do y'all remember the number of the first phone number we had when we first moved to Maryland? Nobody could remember it.
Really?
They knew it was a 301 number,
Of course
but
they
they couldn't
did.
remember it. So
Everyone had a 301.
yeah,
In
now it's
Maryland.
240, 301,
Is there another one?
443.
That's if you're in like Baltimore.
Baltimore. Yeah, up that way.
And then 410.
410 is
That's
Baltimore too. Yeah,
Baltimore.
that's Baltimore too. I was
But-
say Baltimore.
Baltimore.
They didn't get you yet. You still got your New York accent. I'm glad. They didn't get you yet.
They didn't get me. Well, we'll have some more on executive functioning after these messages.
Are you or someone you know suffering from stress, anxiety, or depression? Have you experienced feelings of frustration due to lack of family and/or career support? Let's talk. Relationship issues got you down? Get the help you need. Contact Dr. Sheba Holly, mental health advisor and life coach, at clarity.fm/Dr. Sheba Holly. That's DrShebaHolly. If confidentiality, comfort, and convenience is important to you, guidance is provided on your terms. You deserve peace of mind. Contact Dr. Sheba Holly, mental health advisor and life coach, at clarity.fm/Dr. Sheba Holly. That's DrShebaHolly. Get answers now. Make your appointment today. Let's talk. Clarity.fm/Dr. Sheba Holly. That's DrShebaHolly.
He loves my theme song. All right, so really fast.
Okay.
You know, because we're running out of time. Let's hear something about what you're doing. You're a motivational speaker and an author. So when is that book coming?
Well, I'm a speaker. I hope I don't motivate. I don't think I motivate anybody.
Yeah, right.
Hopefully, I encourage other people to just kind of think. That's kind of what I do as a coach. But
Okay.
no, so I'm a coach. I'm an educator and coach by trade, and I'm a speaker because of that.
Okay.
And so, you know, I mean, if I motivate people, great. If I give them a new way to look at some things, great. That's cool.
So what's up next for you?
What's up next is the book will finally be published, hopefully by my birthday, which is June 6th. If you guys ever want to send presents, we accept all major credit cards, traveler's checks. No, it'll be out hopefully before June 6th.
Okay.
Shopping with editors right now. It's kind of still tweaking some stuff. As you write stuff, it's like, oh my God, did I say too much? Did I not say enough? Is it not?
Does it have a title yet?
Yes, Rebound for Success: Turning adversity into your advantage.
Okay.
So it's a few. It's hopefully it's a book people can pick up and read it in a day, kind of like a Who Moved My Cheese, or Who Moved My bologna sandwich, or whatever. Hopefully something that they could pick up, read, and take bits and pieces of it with them. And some anecdotes for some of the things or spaces they may find themselves in. And so I talk about, how my mother introduced me. Actually, most people think, well, did your dad make you play basketball? I was like, nah. I said, my mom actually introduced me to playing ball. Okay. And the funny thing about it is when I was little, I was probably about 4. I'm like, the ball is bigger than my head, and I got a big head. So, the ball is bigger in my head at the time. And so I was throwing the ball at the rim. I didn't even want it to go in. I just wanted it to hit something.
Oh.
It didn't even have to go in. I said, look, if I can make it hit the net, eventually I'll make it hit the rim, and sooner or later I'll be able to. So, kind of like, I tell people, actually, my mom actually helped create Rebound for Success as like a theme or like a way of life. And so, I tell people, we have, makes and misses.
Okay.
Whether you make shots or miss shots, you got to rebound. And a lot of people, of course, everybody thinks Michael Jordan, and arguably is the greatest of all time because, he won 6 championships and only took six times to do it. Bill Russell has 11 championships, but one thing Bill Russell did was he mastered the art of rebounding, which, if you don't have the ball, you can't do nothing. And so somebody who, for him, I admire him because he gave up the glamour and glitz of scoring and passing to rebound in order to put his team in position. So that's how we do it. So hopefully, let's pray it'll be out before June. Let's pray to be out before June. So
well, that's good. That's good to hear. You have a lot to say. You mentor fathers. You have the coaching, whereas, the Rebound for Success. And that's very important because a lot of times we need blueprints.
Yes.
We need a blueprint to show us where to go. And there's nothing wrong with that. Well,
no.
I loved having you on. I
love
always
being
love
here.
your company.
Well, likewise.
Coach George Rice III.
Thanks for having me. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Now, I want to be more mindful. I want to put down my cell phone. I want to not look at Facebook as soon as I get up. Well, thanks again for coming out. It's a wrap. I know you went to check, right? It's a wrap for us this evening. And you know where I am, Monday nights at 7 here on WLVS Radio. And remember, work like you don't need the money, love like you never been hurt, and dance like nobody's looking. We'll talk later.